if you have silver coins minted before 1853, they're worth significantly more than identical coins minted after. Not because of rarity, but because the government reduced the silver content by 7% in February 1853 and kept the difference. And this wasn't announced to the public with headlines saying the government is stealing 7% of your money. They just quietly passed the Coinage Act of 1853, reduced the weight of half dollars, dimes, and quarters. And within months, all the old full-weight coins disappeared from circulation because people melted them down for their silver content. And this was the first time in American history that the government debased the currency by reducing precious metal content. But it wouldn't be the last, because once you establish the precedent that government can reduce the metal in coins, you open the door to doing it again and again until eventually there's no silver left at all, which is exactly what happened. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your silver coins disappeared in 1853, how this connects to the crime of 1873, 20 years later, and why understanding this history is crucial for anyone who collects old coins or holds silver today. The story of why the Coinage Act of 1853 became necessary begins not in Washington, but in California in 1849 with the discovery of gold. When gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill in January 1848, it triggered the largest gold rush in American history. And by 1850, over 300,000 people had rushed to California seeking fortune. And they found it. California gold production exploded from essentially 0 to over 2 million ounces per year by 1850, and all that gold flooded into the United States economy. But here's the problem that nobody anticipated under the Coinage Act of 1792. The United States operated on a bimetallic standard where both gold and silver were legal tender, and the official ratio was fixed at 15.5 ounces of silver equals 1 ounce of gold, which meant the government would mint 15.5 silver dollars for the same amount of metal it would use to mint 1 gold dollar. And this worked fine when the market ratio between gold and silver stayed close to 15.5 to 1. But when California flooded the market with gold, the market ratio changed. Gold became more abundant relative to silver, which meant gold became cheaper and silver became more expensive. And by 1850, the market ratio had moved to about 16 to 1, which created a profitable arbitrage opportunity that destroyed the silver coin supply. Here's exactly how the arbitrage worked and why it made silver coins disappear from circulation. Let's say you had 1 ounce of gold worth $16 at market prices. You could take that ounce of gold to the United States Mint, and under the official ratio of 15.5 to 1, you could exchange it for 15.5 ounces of silver coined into silver dollars. Then you could take those 15.5 ounces of silver to the market where silver was now more valuable relative to gold and sell it for 16 ounces of gold, giving you a half-ounce profit, and you could repeat this process indefinitely, buying gold with silver at the Mint's official ratio and selling silver for gold at the market ratio. And this is exactly what people did. They took silver coins to be melted and sold as bullion to buy gold, which they then took to the mint to get more silver coins, which they melted again. And this cycle drained silver coins from circulation because it was more profitable to melt them than to spend them. The economic principle behind this is called Gresham's Law, which states that bad money drives out good money, meaning that when you have two forms of money with the same legal tender value but different intrinsic values, people will hoard the more valuable one and spend the less valuable one. And in this case, silver coins with intrinsic value above their face value were hoarded or melted, while gold, which was overvalued at the mint, stayed in circulation. And by 1852, there were virtually no silver coins circulating in the eastern United States. All the half dollars, quarters, and dimes had disappeared, melted for their silver content. The practical consequences of having no small silver coins in circulation were severe and affected everyday commerce. Without half dollars, quarters, and dimes, people couldn't make change for purchases. Imagine trying to buy something for 37 cents when the smallest coin available is $1. Merchants couldn't operate efficiently. Workers couldn't be paid in convenient denominations, and the entire small transaction economy ground to a halt. Some cities and private businesses began issuing their own tokens and script to fill the gap, but these were of questionable legality and value, and the situation was becoming a crisis. The economy needed small denomination silver coins to function, but as long as the silver content was worth more than the face value, any coins minted would immediately be melted, and Congress had to choose between two options. They could adjust the official gold to silver ratio to match the market, which would require revaluing all gold coins and disrupting the gold standard, Or they could reduce the silver content in coins to make them worth less than face value so people would use them as money, instead of melting them. And in February 1853, Congress chose the second option and passed the Coinage Act of 1853. Here's exactly what the Coinage Act of 1853 did to your silver coin. The act reduced the weight of the half dollar from 206.25 grains to 192 grains, a reduction of about 7%. It reduced the quarter dollar from 103.125 grains to 96 grains, also 7%, and it reduced the dime from 41.25 grains to 38.4 grains, again 7%. The silver dollar was left unchanged at 412.5 grains because dollars were primarily used for international trade and foreign payments where a full weight was necessary to maintain credibility, but for domestic circulation coins, half dollars, quarters, and dimes, the government reduced the weight by 7%, which meant they reduced the silver content by 7%. To make it clear which coins were the new lighter weight, the mint added arrows on either side of the date on coins minted in 1853 and 1854. So if you see a half dollar or quarter or dime from 1853 with arrows next to the date, that's a reduced weight coin with 7% less silver. And if you see one without arrows, which would be extremely rare, that's a full weight coin minted before the act took effect. But here's what the government didn't tell you and what most people never realized. When they reduced the silver content by 7%, they didn't reduce the face value. A half dollar was still worth 50 cents, even though it now contains 7% less silver, which means the government effectively confiscated 7% of the silver content and kept it. And where did that 7% go? It went straight to the treasury as seigniorage, which is the profit government makes from issuing currency. They took 7% of the nation's silver coinage, melted down the difference between old weight and new weight, and added it to government reserves or sold it for profit. This was a direct transfer of wealth from citizens who held silver coins to the government if you had $100 in silver coins before the act. After the act, those same $100 in face value now contained only $93 worth of silver at the old standard, and you received no compensation for this loss. The government simply took it, and they called it monetary reform. Now let me show you exactly what happened to the old full-weight silver coins after the Coinage Act passed. And this is where the story gets interesting for coin collectors. As soon as the new lighter weight coins entered circulation in mid-1853, everyone with old full-weight coins faced a choice. You could spend them at face value, which meant giving away the 7% extra silver content for free, or you could melt them and sell the silver at market value. And obviously people chose to melt them. Within 12 months, virtually every pre-attained 53 silver coin had been withdrawn from circulation and either melted for its silver content or hoarded by people who recognized the value. This is why pre-1853 silver coins are so rare today. Most of them were melted in 1853 and 1854. The survival rate is probably less than 5% of the original mintage. And this is exactly what Gresham's law predicts. The bad money, which was the new lighter weight coins, drove out the good money, which was the old full weight coins. And the good money was destroyed, melted into bullion and sold, erasing most of the pre-attained 53 coinage from existence. What would you do if you discovered that the government had quietly reduced the silver content of your money by 7% and pocketed the difference, and then watched as the market immediately recognized this and melted down all the old full value coins, leaving you with debased currency worth less than it should be? This is exactly what happened in 1853, and it's the same pattern that would repeat in 1873, in 1933, and in 1965, each time the government taking more metal from your money until eventually there's none left. If you're starting to understand that the disappearance of silver coins in 1853 wasn't a natural market phenomenon, but a deliberate government policy to debase the currency, stay with me, because what comes next will show you how to identify these rare pre-1853 coins, what they're worth today, and why this matters for anyone who collects coins or invests in silver. Subscribe now, because very few channels explain the actual mechanisms of how government steals wealth through monetary debate. The immediate effects of the Coinage Act of 1853 were exactly what Congress intended. Silver coins returned to circulation because they were no longer worth more as bullion than as money. The new lighter weight half dollars, quarters, and dimes contained just enough silver that their metallic value was slightly below face value, which meant it wasn't profitable to melt them, and people began using them for transactions again. And the small change crisis that had paralyzed commerce for 3 years was solved. Merchants could make change, workers could be paid in convenient denominations, and the economy functioned normally again. And from the government's perspective, this was a success. They had fixed the circulation problem and generated significant seigniorage profit from the 7% reduction in silver content, but from the perspective of anyone who understood monetary economics, this was the first major debasement of United States coinage, and it set a dangerous precedent that would be exploited repeatedly over the next century. Here's how to identify pre-1853 full-weight silver coins and what makes them valuable today. For half dollars, look for dates from 1794 when the first half dollars were minted through 1853. But here's the critical detail. Some 1853 half dollars were minted before the act took effect in February, so there are two varieties of 1853 halves. Those without arrows, which are full weight and extremely rare because most were immediately melted, and those with arrows indicating the new reduced weight, which are common. An 1853 half dollar without arrows is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on condition because very few survived, while an 1853 with arrows is worth only its silver content plus a small numismatic premium. The same pattern applies to quarters and dimes. Pre-1853 dates are worth more than dates of comparable rarity because they contain 7% more silver. In 1853, those examples are the rarest and most valuable of all. The typical value differences for pre versus post-act coins are significant even in worn condition. A common date pre-1853 half dollar in good condition might be worth $20 to $30 based primarily on silver content, while a comparable post-act half dollar might be worth $15 to $20. The difference being that 7% extra silver plus the increased numismatic interest in full-weight coins. For rare dates or better conditions, the premiums are much higher. An 1853 no arrows half dollar in extremely fine condition can be worth $500 or more, while the with arrows version might be worth only $50 in the same grade. This value difference exists across all denominations. Quarters and dimes show the same pattern. Pre-act coins command significant premiums over post-act coins because of the higher silver content and the historical importance of being full-weight coins from before the first major debate. But the long-term consequences of the Coinage Act of 1853 were far more significant than the immediate return of coins to circulation because it established a principle that Congress could reduce the precious metal content of coins without reducing their face value. And once that principle was established, it could be used again. 20 years after the Coinage Act of 1853, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1873, which went much further. It didn't just reduce the silver content of coins, it eliminated the silver dollar entirely and effectively demonetized silver, ending bimetallism and putting the United States on a de facto gold standard. And this is called the crime of 1873 because it was done quietly with little public debate, and it devastated silver miners and farmers who depended on silver-backed currency. The crime of 1873 wouldn't have been possible without the precedent set by the Act of 1853. Because once you've established that government can reduce metal content in coins, it's only a small step to eliminating that metal entirely. The pattern continued in the 20th century with even more dramatic debate. In 1933, Franklin Roosevelt made private ownership of gold illegal and confiscated gold coins from American citizens, paying them $20 per ounce and then immediately revaluing gold to $35 per ounce and keeping the difference. This was essentially the same theft as 1853, but on a larger scale. The government took your gold, gave you paper money worth less than the gold's value, and pocketed the profit. Then, in 1960, Lyndon Johnson signed the Coinage Act of 1965, which removed all silver from dimes and quarters and reduced the silver content of half dollars from 90% to 40%. And by 1971, half dollars were also made with no silver, ending 179 years of silver coinage in the United States. Every step of this process, from 1853 to 1971, involved the government reducing or eliminating precious metal from coins while maintaining or increasing the face value, which is monetary debasement, which is theft. And the pattern started in 1853 with that 7% reduction that seemed so minor at the time. Here's the connection between the Coinage Act of 1853 and what happened to silver prices in recent years that makes this history relevant today. When the government removed silver from coins in 1965, the silver that had been tied up in coin production became available for industrial use. And initially, this suppressed silver prices. But over the following decades, industrial demand for silver in electronics, solar panels, and other applications grew enormously, and the supply of silver from mining couldn't keep pace, and prices began rising. And today, silver trades at $25 to $30 per ounce compared to the $1.29 that it was. officially valued at in 1853, which means silver has increased roughly 20 times in nominal dollars. And if you account for inflation, the increase is even more dramatic. And here's the key insight. If the United States had maintained silver coins with real silver content, those coins would be worth 20 to 30 times their face value today, based purely on metal content. A pre-1965 silver quarter, which contains about 1/5 ounce of silver, would be worth $5 to $6 in metal value today. But it still only spends us 25 cents, which proves that the government's removal of silver from coins was a transfer of wealth from citizens who used money to the government, which confiscated the silver. So what should you do with this knowledge if you collect coins or invest in silver? First, understand that any pre-1853 United States silver coins you encounter are worth significantly more than their post-act counterparts because of the higher silver content. And they're rare because most were melted. So if you find one, don't spend it and don't clean it. Preserve it and have it properly graded by a professional service like PCGs or NGC. Second, when buying old silver coins, always verify the weight and silver content. There are precise specifications for each denomination and date, and you can find these in standard references like the Red Book. A genuine pre-1853 half dollar should weigh 2.25 grains, or about 13.36 grams, while a post-act half dollar weighs 192 grains, or 12.44 grams. And that difference of about 0.9 grams is your 7%. And if a coin doesn't meet the correct weight specification, it's either damaged or counterfeit. Third, recognize that the pattern of government debasement hasn't stopped. Today's coins contain no precious metal at all. They're just base metal tokens. And the value of paper currency continues to decline through inflation, which is the modern equivalent of reducing metal content in coins. The government doesn't need to reduce the silver in quotas anymore because there is no silver. Instead, they just print more currency and destroy its purchasing power, which is the same theft by different means. The economic principle that made silver coins disappear in 1853 is still operating today. Gresham's law still holds. Bad money drives out good money, which is why people hoard pre-1965 silver coins and spend modern base metal coins, which is why gold and silver are stored as wealth while paper currency is spent as quickly as possible. And which is why cryptocurrencies and other alternative stores of value are growing in popularity as confidence in government-issued currency declines. The government tried to solve the problem in 1853 by debasing the currency, reducing silver content so coins would circulate. But the real solution would have been to stop trying to maintain a fixed ratio between gold and silver when the market ratio was changing, to let the metals float in value relative to each other. But that would have required giving up government control over the money supply. And governments never voluntarily give up control. They always choose debasement over honesty, taking metal from coins or printing paper currency or creating digital money out of nothing. Whatever method is available to maintain control and extract wealth from citizens. Here's what most people miss about the Coinage Act of 1853 and why it matters more than just coin collecting trivia. It was the first step in a process that led to the complete separation of money from precious metals and the creation of pure fiat currency backed by nothing except government force. In 1853, money was still tied to silver and gold. The government could only debase it slightly without losing credibility, but each debasement made the next one easier. The crime of 1873 eliminated silver as money. The confiscation of 1933 eliminated gold from private hands. The debasement of 1965 eliminated silver from coins, and the Nixon shock of 1971 eliminated any remaining link between the dollar and gold. And today we have pure fiat currency that can be created in unlimited quantities with no commodity backing. And this was only possible because of the precedents set starting in 1853. If Congress had refused to debase the currency if they had maintained the principle that money must contain its full value in precious metal, the entire history of 20th century monetary debasement might have been different. But once you accept that government can reduce metal content for convenience, you've conceded the principle. And the rest is just a matter of degree and timing. The final lesson from the Coinage Act of 1853 is about who bears the cost of government monetary policies. When the government reduced silver content by 7%, they claimed it was necessary to restore circulation and fix a crisis. And technically this was true. The crisis was real, and the debasement did fix the immediate problem. But the cost was borne entirely by holders of silver coins who lost 7% of their metal content with no compensation, while the government captured 7% of the nation's silver coinage as seigniorage profit. This is the pattern with every monetary debasement. The government, and those close to government, benefit through seigniorage or through being first to receive newly created money, while ordinary people who hold the debased currency bear the cost through loss of purchasing power. And they're told this is necessary for economic stability or to fight a crisis. But the real reason is always the same. Government wants more resources than it can raise through honest taxation. So it debases the currency and takes the difference. And this has been true from ancient Rome through 1853 to today. The method changes, but the theft remains constant. Now you understand why your silver coins disappeared in 1853. It wasn't that people stopped using them or that they wore out. It's that the government reduced the silver content by 7% and created a situation where the old full weight coins were immediately melted because they were worth more as bullion than as money. And you understand that this wasn't an accident or an unintended consequence. It was the deliberate result of a policy choice to debase the currency rather than adjust the monetary system. And you understand that this established a precedent that was used again and again over the next century to reduce and eventually eliminate precious metal from American coins. And if you collect old coins, you now know why. Pre-1853 examples are rare and valuable, and why. 1853 Noros coins are among the key dates that serious collectors seek. And if you invest in silver, you understand that the pattern of government taking metal for money hasn't stopped. It's just evolved into different forms. And the only protection is to hold physical silver outside the banking system where government can't debase it with a legislative act. If this explanation of the Coinage Act of 1853 has opened your eyes to how government debasement works and why your old silver coins disappeared. If you're finally understanding that the process of separating money from precious metals started with small steps like 7% reductions before escalating to complete elimination. If you're looking at the coins in your collection differently now that you know which ones contain full weight and why that matters, then you need to see what we reveal next, because the Coinage Act of 1853 was just the beginning. Subscribe now and prepare to discover the crime of when the government went much further and eliminated silver as money entirely, devastating the silver mining states and farmers who depended on bimetallic currency, the gold confiscation of 1933 when Franklin Roosevelt made owning gold a federal crime and stole it from citizens under threat of 10 years in prison, and the final debasement of 1960. When Lyndon Johnson removed the last silver from circulating coins, turning them into worthless tokens, because once you see the complete pattern from 1853 to today, you'll understand that every step was predictable. Each debasement made the next one easier. And the only surprise is that anyone still trusts government-issued currency when history shows that governments always eventually debase it. And the only question is whether you'll learn this lesson in time to protect yourself, or whether you'll be holding paper promises when the next crisis hits and the government reaches for the same playbook they've used for 170 years.